Right.
How you see?
No, you go ahead, man. No, you.
How you see yourself with a Devin Haney fight?
Oof. It's gonna be identical to that Ryan joint. I'm telling you, cause I'm applying pressure. Hey, that's funny you asked that. Man. Look, I'm trying to tell you, I'm coming at these dudes, and there's no smoke against them, no static or nothing like that. We never had no confrontation in no way, shape, or form. I mean, he tried.
Right.
How you see?
No, you go ahead, man. No, you.
How you see yourself with a Devin Haney fight?
Oof. It's gonna be identical to that Ryan joint. I'm telling you, cause I'm applying pressure. Hey, that's funny you asked that. Man. Look, I'm trying to tell you, I'm coming at these dudes, and there's no smoke against them, no static or nothing like that. We never had no confrontation in no way, shape, or form. I mean, he tried.
Gary Antuanne Russell, he says if he were to face none other than WBC champion Devin the Dream Haney, it's gonna look a lot like the Ryan Garcia fight, because he coming straight at him with the aggression. Make sure you guys subscribe. In a brand new interview with Mill City Boxing, the link will be in the description. Subscribe to Mill City Boxing for the interview. And it sounded like Zab Judah, of all people, was the one that asked the question, right? Zab Judah is Devin Haney's godfather and is close with the Haney family. And it's ironic that he's the one that is asking the question, what would you do to Gary Antuanne Russell? So, full disclosure, I put his picture up. Gary Antuanne Russell is the Russell brother that is at 140 pounds. There's multiple Garys. People tend to get confused with the Gary Russell from the featherweight fame. That is his brother. That's his older brother. This is the Gary Antuanne Russell, that was in the same Olympic Games as Shakur Stevenson in Rio, right? So I gotta make y'all aware of what's going on, full disclosure. It's just like Jermell and Jamal Charlo. There's a lot of people to this day, Wilder voice, to this day, that can't decipher the two. You know, they say they're diehard boxer fans. They can't tell Jermell and Jamal Charlo apart. Same thing with Gary. I don't even know why I had the headphones on still. Make sure you guys subscribe. Same thing with Gary Antuanne Russell is not the same as Gary Russell Jr. Now, also, I think it's worth noting that there was a point in time where Devin Haney and the featherweight Gary Russell Jr. had a back and forth, if you will, an exchange of words. And that's with the featherweight. So this is the bigger 140 pound younger brother. But there was a point in time where people on YouTube were pushing and saying that Gary Russell Jr. was going to fight against Devin Haney. There was, I'm not going to get into it because it was so many years ago, but just to give you guys cliff notes, Bill Haney was trying to orchestrate a fight. He was saying, fight us on DAZN. There were some issues that Gary Russell Jr. had with the contract, yada, yada, yada. And he says, it doesn't have no kind of company letterhead. This don't look like a real contract. Things aren't filled out, missing intel, missing information. So he wasn't feeling it. And the fight didn't materialize because it didn't look professional, right? Again, I'm not gonna dive too much deeper into that. You guys can watch the old videos. It's like Jay-Z said, ninjas want bought my old albums. If y'all want my old stuff, because I made videos about it in real time, because I've been that dude in boxing. Y'all want my old ish, buy my old albums. So this is the different Gary Antuanne Russell. Great fighter. He is a real, and it's funny because just like all brothers, I would imagine, I would say Gary Antuanne Russell, he definitely doesn't fight like Gary Russell. Like they both have some athleticism and speed, things like that. But they fight different, like the tonality and like the ebb and flow of their fights are different. I was impressed with Gary Antuanne Russell in many fights, namely the Victor Postal. No one, including Terrence Crawford, had stopped Victor Postal. Now, this might be a little bit controversial because some people didn't like the stoppage, but he clipped Victor Postal. It was many years after Terrence Crawford fight, but Victor Postal fought other guys like Josh Taylor, who was undisputed, and he didn't get stopped by them, right? So I was impressed overall with that particular performance by Mr. Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary Antuanne Russell last fought August of last year, so he hasn't been the most athletic guy. Before that, he fought against Francis Barthélemy. Now, another stoppage, but people said the stoppage was controversial. Thing that's impressive here is Gary Antuanne Russell is stopping guys like Francis Barthélemy, crafty Cuban, Jose Ramirez, after Gary Antuanne Russell already beat him, right? He just fought against Francis Barthélemy in Fresno on the card with Virgil Ortiz. I'm talking about in the last 2 months. And Jose Ramirez really got dropped by him and had to bite down in that particular fight. And it went the full distance, 12 rounds or whatever. Gary Antuanne Russell's young, youthful, getting these guys out of here. Another opponent is Giovanni Santiago. That's not a big name, but again, I'm an advanced watcher of this beautiful sport known as boxing. Adrian the Problem Broner fought Santiago as a comeback fight, and in that comeback fight, he went the decision with him. And it was a controversial fight where some people were even arguing that Broner lost the fight to Santiago or just saying it was razor thin. When Gary Antuanne Russell fought him, it was another knockout. So Gary Antuanne Russell is 17-0 and he has 17 knockouts. There's only a few guys, Gary Antuanne Russell, Artur Beterbiev, and Virgil Ortiz Jr., who I mentioned earlier in this video. Those are the three that come to mind that have 100% knockout ratios. Even guys who are high on the pound for pound list, like Naoya Inoue, they don't have all stoppages. Inoue didn't stop Nonito Donaire in the first fight. You have Usyk, who didn't stop Joshua when they fought. And he didn't stop Tyson Fury, even though I thought he should have got the stoppage in the 9th round with Tyson Fury. Whole separate video. So all in all, Gary Antuanne Russell has every right to feel confident. He has every right to feel himself and believe that he could beat Devin Haney. Now, another thing that is important is he's a southpaw. Devin Haney had issues with Lomachenko, who was a southpaw, and some people believe that he didn't even win that fight with Lomachenko. Ryan Garcia is an orthodox fighter, but the punch that kept continuing to land was the left hook. Gary Antuanne Russell has Olympic experience. He's also young, and he's so rugged where his style is like real menacing and real grinding, and he stays on top of you. That's why he started laughing when he was asked the question about, would you fight Devin Haney? What would that fight look like? And again, this is Devin Haney's godfather. I don't know if he knew that, but it's Devin Haney's godfather that he's speaking to that asked the question. And he's laughing like, yo, you know what happens. It was going to look identical. He literally said it would look identical to the Ryan Garcia fight because he says, I'm bringing it. He says, you heard it at the beginning. He said, I don't have no ill will or no malice towards Devin Haney. Like, it's nothing personal. Basically, he said, Nino Brown, it's always business. It's never nothing personal, right? He's saying that I don't got no, thing against Devin Haney particularly, but this is my job, and you know, styles make fights. I said that to say this. It's looking bad for the Haneyx. I already made a video because the WBC announced, first of all, PBC announced Gary Antuanne Russell was making his long-awaited return to the ring, because I told you in this video he hasn't been the most active guy. In addition to him returning to the ring, it's a title fight. He's fighting for the WBC interim title against Alberto Puello. I believe Gary Antuanne Russell said he don't think that Puello has a chance in there. I personally think Puello's a good fighter, but I'm definitely favoring Gary Antuanne Russell. So I don't think he's looking past him, but he should win. You know, at least to me, I think it's perfectly fine to favor Gary Antuanne Russell. Styles make fights. So what does that mean? That means him being the interim champion, Devin Haney retained his title with the WBC, even though he lost to Ryan Garcia. For starters, Ryan Garcia, they said he had ostarine in his system. He has a positive test, and we're in the middle of that investigation. But before that, because Ryan Garcia missed weight by 3.2 pounds, he was never eligible to win the title, even if he defeated Devin Haney. And for whatever reason, the WBC had decided that Devin Haney, win, lose, or draw, was going to remain the champion. And that's what happened. And I told you guys on my channel that I didn't see that as being a beneficial thing, because the world seen you get scraped by Ryan Garcia. And of course, this commentary was before the positive ostarine test, but even after the positive ostarine test, it doesn't erase the images and the memes and the videos that people seen of that night in that encounter, Haney versus Garcia. Now it looks like the world of boxing, or at least people in it, are looking and viewing Devin Haney differently, which I told you was going to happen. And it sounds like they're looking at him like food, which is totally what I predicted, but it spells trouble for Devin Haney. It spells trouble because, like I said, one fateful night, one performance, one night in the world of boxing can completely change a fighter's trajectory. We've seen it time and time again. In my honest opinion, Adrian Broner's path was forever altered the day he signed up and fought El Chino Marcos Maidana, because Broner lost that fight, lost the fight, almost got stopped in the fight. He got hurt multiple times. He got dropped and people made memes. And people, since that particular fight, they always reference that fight. But beyond that, a lot of people, if you listen to commentators, they say Broner don't let his hands go like the old Broner. Like when Broner was fighting against Gavin Reese, that was before the Maidana fight. When Broner was fighting against Ponce de Leon and Antonio DeMarco and guys like that, Broner would let his hands go. Even fights with like Sean Porter, he didn't let his hands go, and that was after the Maidana fight. But he just seemed more gun shy after the Maidana fight. That's the best way to put it. Broner, after that fight, because before he was like knocking out Jason Litzau and Eloy Perez, rest in peace, and DeMarco, things like that. After the Maidana fight, it was like Broner wasn't quite the same, didn't let his hands go the same, was a bit more economical with his punches. So I think that Maidana fight had something to do with it. Meldrick Taylor, that's another fight. When he fought Julio Cesar Chavez, I don't think he was ever the same, for all the boxing historians. So Devin Haney, what I'm saying to you is Devin Haney took that type of trajectory, career-altering beating where everything that could go wrong virtually did go wrong, and now you're stuck left picking up the pieces. And I could see that being disruptive to Devin's career. Now you got a guy like Gary Antuanne Russell, full of confidence, and he just sounds ferocious, and he's gonna be Devin Haney's mandatory before you know it. That fight will probably get ordered at some point. So now the walls are kind of closing in on Devin Haney. What does he do? If he doesn't fight his mandatory Sandor Martin, then the belt will go probably vacant, and then Sandor Martin and somebody else fight for it. And that's going to be a bad look. So, like, just hear me out. I want everybody in boxing. Want everyone in boxing to hear what I'm saying, interpret what I'm saying, and tell me if it makes sense in the comment section. You just fought Ryan Garcia. There were a lot of mistakes that were made negotiations-wise, but also in the ring. Regardless of the PED, there were mistakes made. You couldn't defend the left hook, right? Unless you believe trace amounts of Osterine gave Ryan Garcia X-Men superhuman strength and power and speed and, was the bridge the gap. But it looked like there were still deficiencies from Devin Haney, right? When you have Gary Antuanne Russell doing this interview with Mill City, he's not saying, oh, Ryan cheated, so I still think Devin Haney's a hard fight. And I told you that. No fighters, they're trained to take down their opponent and try to demolish them. So when you have such a night like Devin Haney had, people are looking at your flaws. They're looking at what you're vulnerable with, what you don't like. And a lot of that was shown from Devin Haney. Now you got this aggressive guy who's likely to be a mandatory at some point, and he's breathing down Devin Haney's neck. No diddy. He's barking up that tree, and it's a good fight. Devin fought someone in Ryan who was his age, around his age, knew him from the amateurs, around his size, with some good attributes, and it was Devin Haney's career worst performance. Gary Antuanne Russell is young, aggressive, rugged, and durable, because he did get hurt in the fight with Rances Bartholomew, who's a crafty Cuban. The thing that Devin is going to have problems with is, in my opinion, Devin is not the biggest hitter, and his chin may be vulnerable. So that, plus the fact of people are calling you now a weight bully, so people are going to be looking at all these things in your upcoming future fight. So it's like, think about it. What do you do? If you keep the WBC belt, then you have WBC problems. These problems include Sandor Martin, your mandatory, and eventually it's going to be a Gary Antuanne Russell who's going to look to consolidate the WBC titles. If you're coming off the Ryan performance and then they let you keep the belt and you don't fight your mandatory Sandor Martin, I don't know how that's going to be viewed by boxing. I don't think that looks good. It's not going to look good that you just got rid of your belt, but you had this cake talking about some and still just to give up the belt. So that is that. Plus, a lot of people think you shouldn't be a champion and don't really understand why the WBC allowed you to lose but keep your belt. We understand Ryan not winning the belt. That makes sense because he missed weight. But based on the fact in the performance, keeping the belt, you can't feel like a top champion even with the PED fail. Now your problems worsen because after Sandor Martin, you got a guy like Gary Antuanne Russell who's chock full of confidence, and he's talking about it's going to be identical. So it's going to be real interesting to see if Devin Haney fights some of these difficult styles. And the way I see it, based on how things played in the Ryan Garcia fight, a lot was exposed and shown, and it's only going to get people's confidence to grow. So now you have to rethink where you place Devin Haney and how some of these matchups would be. Because before, there were people saying that Devin would destroy Subriel Matias, Haneyx. I never said that. You've never heard me say that because I never thought that, right? Subriel Matias is an extremely difficult fight. He's a power guy. He looks durable. And he's literally taking someone off this planet from punishment sustained in the fight. That's a horrible fight coming off the Ryan Garcia fight for Devin. But that's your unification options. Then your mandatory options don't look that much better. Sandor Martin, and then eventually Gary Antuanne Russell. Lemos, Hitchens. I'm trying to think of everyone who's at one. Teofimo. These are all just dangerous fights in general. So it'll be interesting, especially with the Haneys blaming Ryan Garcia in the Osterine for their loss, because here's the other kicker. Not everybody is going to fail a drug test and be on Osterine. So that's specific to Ryan Garcia. That doesn't apply to Sandor Martin, Gary Antuanne Russell, Teofimo Lopez, Subriel, Matias, or anybody else that hasn't failed a drug test. So these are going to be the fights. I personally think Devin should try to rematch and set the record straight with a clean Ryan. Make sure it's stringent testing, dot your I's, cross your T's, and have increased testing. But I think that's the best fight for Devin that makes the most sense and makes the most money. If not, because he can't go back down to 135. He's too big. He had to weigh in naked for Ryan Garcia. Then you got a guy like Gary Antuanne Russell who's coming. And I told you, I've been a fan of Mr. Gary Antuanne Russell. He doesn't seem like he gets tired, and he kind of ratchets up the tension, and he just keeps grinding and attacking you. And you got to have a tight defense, which Devin Haney's defense, to me, in the Ryan fight seemed leaky. So I understand why Gary Antuanne Russell is saying it's going to be a identical or duplication of that Ryan fight, and started laughing, because stylistically, until I see a much improved Devin Haney with a different coach and several performances in, stylistically, Gary Antuanne Russell is a nightmare for Devin Haney and his style. Young, strapping, aggressive, southpaw, doesn't stop, and you got to literally ice him to probably get him off of you. You have to really get respect. Devin has a left jab and a 1-2. I don't see that as necessarily being enough to keep Gary Antuanne Russell honest. And I haven't seen every single fight, but it looks like he has a good beard. It looks like it to me. So we'll see what unfolds. But Devin's next fight is a pivotal moment in his career.